when you think about your business or you think about your passion or you think about work, I think about, okay, what do I need to do in terms of how much time and what actions do I need to take in order to develop the skills so that I can perform the work? Mm-hmm. So there's the deliberate practice that goes into practicing your skill and your
mastery.
And your competency. Mastery, so that when it comes time to actually deliver the work, whether that's selling or standing on a stage or writing a book or talking to people or selling real estate or whatever it is that may be your passion, deliver. This is the one I neglected last year. This bucket is, what are you doing to personally develop yourself so that you are the most capable, fulfilled, and satisfied human being, so that when you show up to do your competency and your skills and the delivery, that you as the human being are able to do that.
Do it anyway is a mindset trick that you can use when you start to feel excuses rolling up. It works a lot like the 5-second rule. So you have said to yourself, okay, I'm going to talk to my boss today about that thing that I've been avoiding talking to them about. Or maybe you've said something like, I'm going to go to the gym today or tomorrow or whatever. And then the moment comes where you've got to have that conversation. Or the moment comes where it's time to pack up your bag and leave your desk and go to the gym. And what always happens? You don't feel like it. I bet there are plenty of you watching that have made a commitment that, I'm not going to have a drink tonight. And then guess what happens when you get home? You don't feel like not drinking. You feel like having a drink. And so here's what do it anyway has done for me. The idea that I just do it anyway has pushed me to realize and to recognize that there are a lot of moments where there are things in my life that I really want to do, I need to do, I should do, but when the moment comes, I don't feel like it. And so I pull out this idea of, you know what? I'm just going to do it anyway. It's raining outside. I said I would go for a short run. I don't feel like it. I'm going to do it anyway. It's 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm tired. It's cold. I laid out my yoga clothes, but now I don't feel like it. What do? I do it anyway. When you start to say to yourself, I'm going to do it anyway, what happens is something really cool. You acknowledge that there are feelings that you have that are trying to swoop in and hijack you. You acknowledge them and you basically say, guess what? I'm going to do it anyway. So how do you make a big decision, right? So it's a decision that sounds like he's going to accept a new job, but it requires him to move to another state. And notice what he said, I want it, but I'm afraid. This is the perfect question for right now because you would actually use do it anyway. You see, the thing about the way to make decisions, this is my decision-making tool. I don't think we haven't covered it yet in this, but for those of you that have followed me for a while, you know that I have this decision-making tool. In fact, we talked about it in the journaling method. So in the journaling method, if you go back to videos 9, 10, and 11, and if you look at the journaling method that we talk to you about, and look, I want to tell you something. I'm not asking you to buy this. In fact, please don't buy the 5-second journal. We don't have any more in stock. They're sold out around the globe. We'll print more. Do not buy this. I'm not doing this training to ask you to buy anything. I'm showing you this because for those of you that don't have the journaling method in front of you, if you go to 5secondjournal.com, 5secondjournal.com. If you go to 5secondjournal.com, what you will find is a ton of free templates that will show you the journaling method for free. You don't ever have to buy that. I'm telling you not to buy it. I want to be very clear. The reason why we're doing these trainings is not to get you to buy something, okay? It's to help you learn how to reset your mind. So back to the question. The opening thing in the journal, do I have one that's open here? Because then I can, I'll just open this one. The opening thing in the journal is a fuel gauge that has you tune in, and this is going to get to decision making, that has you tune in to how you're feeling energy-wise every morning. And so let me show you what that looks like in case you haven't seen those videos yet. So you see this little fuel gauge right here. Oh, can you see it on Instagram, Oak? Am I holding it up?
Yep.
Just like not that one. Yeah, there you go.
Okay,
you can see it really
there you go. So that fuel gauge is a visual cue to have you tune into your energy and to assess whether or not you are depleted and empty about something and heavy, or the other extreme is energized, full, expanded, open to possibility. And the reason why I ask you to do that first thing in the morning to assess your mood, to assess your energy, to tune in, is because there's established research that says that your mood in your morning impacts your productivity and focus all day long. And so if you can boost your mood in the morning, it has a material impact on your focus and on your productivity all day. And so we use it in the morning in the journaling method that I've taught you in videos 9 through 11. But when it comes to decisions, I want you to do the exact same thing. I get that you're scared. It's a change. I would be kind of surprised if you weren't a little nervous about doing something awesome, like moving to a new state and starting a new job and all the possibilities that come in with it. So if you're trying to make a decision, do I do this thing that's scary or not? What you do is tune inward and really assess, how do you feel about it? When you think about yourself living in this new place and having this new job and all the possibility and growth that comes with it, do you feel dead and depleted and stuck? Or do you feel energized and alive and full of possibility? You see, if the decision is something that will expand your future, that will create possibility, that will make you grow, then it is 1,000% something that you must do. And you must do it even though you're afraid. And the fear is a very normal thing. And the fear is there because you're about to do something new. But do not use the fear to talk yourself out of making a decision that actually is grounded in growth and possibility and energizing you. So that's how I make decisions, using the stuff that you're learning in the Mindset Reset. And again, you can go back to the journaling method on videos 9, 10, and 11. But if you have a big decision to make and you notice that you're afraid, or you notice that you're stuck up here, go in and ask yourself, does the decision deplete me, make me stuck, make me feel dead, make me feel heavy? Or does the decision, even though it scares me, even though it's hard, is there something about it that expands possibility and opens up my life and will give me an opportunity to grow? If you're in this camp, the answer is heck yes. If you're in the dead camp and the hell no, heck no, okay? The do it anyway thing, I do it every morning. Because here's the deal about me, you guys. I hate exercising. I hate it.
Yeah, you do.
I do. I hate it. But actually, I should say it this way. I hate going. I hate getting dressed for it. I hate driving there. But I love how I feel when I've done it. I love it. And so do it anyway has helped me get through the front resistance, the part that I hate. And it helps me get there. And once I'm there, I absolutely don't necessarily love the exercise, but when I'm done, I love how I feel. And so that's how I use do it anyway, okay? Every day I use do it anyway, because it works so powerfully for me to push my excuses aside and to actually take care of my body, which is a very important thing in terms of my commitment, in terms of my desire to really enjoy my life fully. But I never, ever, ever, I'm never the kind of person that wakes up and goes, yeah, let's go exercise. I'm never the kind of person that is driving there going, I'm so excited to do this. I'm never the kind of person walking in that's even like, yes, I'm so glad I made it. I dread it, usually all the way through it. Sometimes I half enjoy it while I'm there, but mostly I dread it. But by the time it's over, I frigging love the fact that I went, and that's why I do it.
I often find myself procrastinating on working on my side hustle of making online content by keeping busy with cleaning. It gives me the illusion that I'm being productive.
Yes.
How do I stay on track? It reminds me of you with the furniture.
Yes, I used to rearrange the furniture in my living room every week because it allowed me to distract myself from doing the real work that I needed to do, which was to create a side hustle so we could pay our bills. It became like a joke. So the thing about procrastination is it's triggered by stress. So your cleaning is being triggered by stress. And there's only one way to deal with this pattern. You have to interrupt it. So when you catch yourself cleaning next time, that's a moment of power because you're now present. You're like, oh my God, here I am cleaning again. Use the 5-second rule, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 to switch gears in your brain and get control in the moment. And then I want you to just do one thing on your side hustle. That's it. Drop the cleaning stuff, walk over, send one email on your side hustle, write one paragraph of content, do one thing. And here's why. Here's why I want you to focus on doing one thing or working for 5 minutes. That's it. Set a timer for 5 minutes. I'm going to work on content for 5 minutes. We know based on the research that you're 80% of the time you're going to keep going past the 5 minutes, because the issue isn't that you don't know how to create content. The issue is that when you start to feel stressed out, you go to cleaning. It's a pattern that you've trained yourself to do. The only way to interrupt that pattern is to break it and insert a new one, okay? And let me just say something about procrastination and perfectionism, okay? Because how many of you struggle with being a perfectionist? Yep, I'm sure. The thing about those of you who are perfectionists is that it's not about being perfect. Perfectionism is really your attempt to be in control. And we're seeing a massive rise in the number of people that struggle with perfectionism. And I think it has to do with the fact that our culture is now so focused on performing from an early childhood, from how you do in school to being on the right club team, and then it's the travel team, and then it's the this team, and then it's recruiting for college, and the way that we parent our kids, and helicoptering and swooping down, and the pressure of college, and the pressure to achieve, and the concern that you're going to make a mistake. I mean, this has become a self-imposed epidemic. And so if you are somebody who struggles with perfectionism, you can't turn in something at work until it's perfect. You can't finish the paper until it's perfect. You can't even start with redecorating your room until you know the perfect color. That this is really about control. You are uncomfortable just being in the flow. You're uncomfortable with the unknown. And the most important thing here is to realize that this is a pattern, and you absolutely have to break free of the need to do everything right and to get into the mode of just being willing to try. Get into the mode of understanding, hey, if I turn in something at work that's not like perfect, I'll get feedback and then I'll make it right. Like in the work and in the willingness to just keep pushing things down the line, keep showing up, keep raising your hand even though you're not sure you're going to say it right, keep contributing, keep asking for feedback. You 1,000% will slowly lose the grip of being a perfectionist, because the only way to break that pattern is to realize, oh my God, I'm trying to keep control, and that's why I'm holding on to this paper, that's why I'm torturing myself, that's why I'm doing everything. The magic is in the willingness to push things forward, to try, to get in the flow, to basically say, I'm just gonna do my best. That's it. I'm not gonna do it right. I'm going to just try. I'm gonna do my best. And when I get feedback on how I can do it better, that's how I'm gonna learn. I am a lifelong learner. I don't ever think I'm gonna do anything perfect. This is not something I struggle with anymore, because I have broken this pattern in my mind and realized that all of the opportunity and magic comes from you being willing to put yourself out there when you're not perfect, being willing to do things and start things when you haven't figured it out, and understanding that when you get into the flow and into the conversation and into the live stream, that you can get into problem solving mode and you can figure it out.
If you want to get work done, you have to manage distractions and interruptions. So the tech stuff is easy. Put your computer or your phone on Do Not Disturb so that you can get work done. That's number one. Number two, if it's interruptions from family members, what the heck? Put a sign on your door. Do not disturb unless you're on fire. Or I'll be available in an hour unless it's an emergency. When we first started quarantining, my kids were so anxious and discombobulated, they would come in to my office at home every 10 minutes. Mom, how do I cook microwave popcorn? Mom, how much food do I feed the dog? Mom, is someone going to the grocery? Mom, can I? And you know what they were doing? A lot of times when people interrupt you, they're managing their own anxiety, boredom, procrastination by coming to interrupt you. They're creating reasons to interrupt their own work or their own emotional state by coming and interrupting you. That's what I realized was happening. Everybody was all discombobulated. We're underneath one roof. People are bored, frustrated, procrastinating, feeling anxious. And so what do you do if you can't sit still and you don't want to do what you're doing? You get up, and you can't drive to a coffee shop, and you can't go run an errand, and you can't go do so you go interrupt somebody. So I'm not kidding when I tell you, put a sign on the door. The other thing that you should do that is super helpful, I know this sounds terrible, but it works like a charm. On Sunday night, have a family meeting. Go over the week. Outline all of the things that you have coming up. And then you've got to take it a step further. I've been doing a tremendous number of virtual presentations for companies all over the world. And whenever I'm streaming online for a paid client, it's not enough to have previewed this for my family on Sunday. That takes care of who's picking people up and what needs to happen on Tuesday when I'm giving the presentation. But when I'm in the middle of it, nobody's going to remember that mom was not supposed to be interrupted. So you know what I do? I text everybody in our family group chat in all caps. I'm about to go online for a paid client. Do not call me. Do not. I will not pick up from 2 o'clock to 3:30. Thank you. I love you. And that has worked like a charm. You should hang something on the door. And you can have a sign that says you may enter, and then you should have a sign that says you may not, and then put a sticky note as to when you're going to be available again. That way, you are training somebody to stop and think before they walk in. You're training somebody to go, is this actually important, before they come to you. In terms of everything else, it's on you to hit the do not disturb. It's on you to send calls to voicemail. It's on you to turn off the notifications, because you simply can't work if those things are happening. You've got to manage the interruptions and distractions, period. Because if it's an emergency, it's not an interruption, it's an emergency. Everything else is an interruption. And distractions are on you.
As many of you know, I struggle with ADD and anxiety and mild dyslexia. I've got a whole casserole of neurological stuff going on over here. But I've been recently getting a ton of questions about ADD, and so I wanted to address them. Stephanie, for example, wrote, Mel, I've heard in a couple of your videos that you have ADD. When did you become aware of it? What are the positive effects? In what ways has it held you back? And what are strategies that you use to cope with it? Stephanie, thank you for asking. So when did I become aware that I had ADD? Believe it or not, I'm 49 years old. I only became aware of it 2 years ago. When I was 47 years old, I was diagnosed with ADD. And here's a funny story. I remember right after I was diagnosed, my 10-year-old son, he had a pediatrician appointment, and ironically, we were going through all this testing for ADHD for him. And when the test came back positive that Oakley has ADHD, I kind of smiled and said to our pediatrician, well, I know who he gets it from, Mark. I was just diagnosed with ADD. And he looked at me and said, Mel, you were just diagnosed? What do you mean? I said, yeah, I just found out like a month ago. He looked at me dead in the eye, you guys, and he said, I've known you for 16 years. You are textbook for having ADD. And I looked back at him, I'm like, Mark, why the hell didn't you tell me? And he said, because I'm not your doctor. And I assumed you were already being treated. When I was diagnosed, it was a bit of a surprise because I don't know about you, but when I heard the term ADD, what came to mind for me was a 8-year-old little boy who can't sit still in his chair in school. I didn't really know that ADD is something that affects girls and also affects women. Now, when I dug into the research on ADD, you might be surprised to learn that ADD, ADHD, it affects men and women in equal numbers. There's a whole group of psychiatrists and psychologists who have been studying ADD, and they have discovered that there is a lost generation of women just like me. So if you happen to be a woman and you feel disorganized or forgetful or easily distracted or scattered, guess what? You might actually have ADD, and you should probably go talk to your doctor about it. Now, I'm not a doctor, so I can't diagnose you. I can just share with you what my experience is. You see, I assumed if you're 47 years old and you're smart and you're successful, there's no way in hell you have ADD, right? Actually, yes, you can be smart and successful and still struggle with ADD just like I do. For a very long time, the American Psychiatric Association defined the standards for ADD based on how it manifested in little boys. And when girls have ADD and ADHD, it looks really different. They're not bouncing around in their chair, they're daydreaming. They're having a hard time following instructions, and they're really disorganized. And what happens is a lot of girls go undiagnosed, and then that spirals into anxiety and depression. Why? Well, because if you have ADD and you're not successful with treating it, or you don't have strategies to cope with it, you tend to start to beat yourself up. You tend to start to make yourself wrong for being so disorganized. You tend to start to feel a little hopeless over your ability to get things done. And that spirals. And that's exactly what happened for me. You see, I was diagnosed with anxiety when I was 21 years old. Boom, right there in that lost generation of women. We missed the diagnosis of ADD in me. Instead, it turned into anxiety and depression, and that became the primary thing that I struggled with. Now, meanwhile, the ADD was underneath there untreated the entire time. When I got diagnosed at the age of 47 with ADD, it was so surprising and so empowering because I finally had a way to explain something about the way that my mind works that made a hell of a lot of sense. I also found the compassion that I needed for myself so that I could stop beating myself up and actually just accept the fact that I have a neurological condition that makes me disorganized, forgetful, easily distracted, and sometimes scattered. Now, what are the positive effects? Well, I have a lot more humanity for myself, and I laugh at myself when I walk in the kitchen and see that the faucet is still running because I forgot to turn it off, instead of making myself wrong. What ways has it held me back? I think it's the source of my anxiety that I suffered with for a very long time. There are plenty of projects that I was never able to finish in college or law school or in jobs. What are the strategies that I use to cope with it? Well, number one, you gotta go see a professional. So having a doctor to talk to about ADD has been extraordinarily helpful in understanding the way that my mind works and the strategies that I should be using in order to set myself up for success. Get yourself educated after you talk to a professional. So I love Ned Hollowell's book, Driven to Distraction. I love John Rady's book about Spark and the connection between exercise and ADD and depression and anxiety. So get yourself educated. I take Adderall, not every day, not all the time. I will, for example, take it if I'm on an airplane and I'm gonna fly across country and I have 4 hours in a seat and I wanna focus and get a lot of work done, I'll take it in that instance. If I have a deadline and I'm finding that it's hard for me to focus, I might take it then. but that has worked really well for me. I know a lot of people abuse it. I don't happen to be one of those people that abuse it, but it has been a real lifesaver. The other thing that has helped me a lot with ADD is exercise. So I noticed that right after I exercise, I typically have a 2 to 3 hour window where I'm much more focused than I normally am. And finally, I notice a big connection between my gut and my ADD. So I am an extremely healthy eater because when I tend to carbo load or eat and mainline ice cream or drink a ton of booze, what ends up happening is I get more distracted, less focused, and it has a negative impact on the ADD condition that I struggle with. I hope that helps. I hope if you're somebody who's saying, holy cow, I'm disorganized, I'm easily distracted, I beat myself up all the time. I hope that this inspires you to go talk to your doctor to see if this is something that's impacting you. Because the fact of the matter is, you can be smart, you can be successful, and you can still struggle with ADD. And the good news is, there's a lot of simple things that you can do to alleviate the suffering and actually improve your focus and your ability to get things done.
Today is the last day of the year. And today is literally my most favorite day of my life. And here's why. Right now, have you ever considered that you are the oldest that you've ever been? You are the wisest that you've ever been. And that's because you're the most experienced you've ever been. You're the most broken that you've ever been. You're the most loved that you've ever been. And that means that right now you have an incredible opportunity in the palm of your hand. And it is the opportunity to make today the best day ever. And you have the opportunity to do that because you can choose how you're going to move your life forward. You see, life doesn't go backwards. Life goes forward. And the way that you drive your life forward is through the decisions that you make. It's through the people that you hang out with. It's how you spend your time. And you have complete control over those things, which means you have control over how your life can move forward. And that's an amazing thing. And so today, at least in the United States right now, I know some of you have already rung in the new year, it is the last day of the year. And it is my favorite holiday of the year because I love endings and beginnings. I think there's nothing more powerful than ending something except for the power of beginning something. And so you've got this incredible opportunity to say, thank you, 2018. Next, what are we going to create? And so if you are part of the program that we're running right now called Mindset Reset, you know what we're talking about. If you're bumping into this video either today or at some point in the future, this is very relevant to your life in this moment because today has a ton of power. This could be literally one of the most powerful days of your life because you could make a decision today that changes everything. And that is the power of making, I'm talking in circles. So I see so many things going on. I'm starting to get distracted. If you could see my point of view. And so that's one of the coolest things about life, about being a human being, is that if you're watching this video, I want you to consider something. You're better off than billions of other people. Let's just start with that fact right there. You have access to the internet. You have access to some form of technology that's allowing you to even view a video that I made. You have the brain power to process what I'm saying. And the fact that you have those three things means literally that you are better off than billions of other people that you're sharing this planet with. So let's start right there. The second thing is that since you can watch this, or you can read the captions in the closed captions, or you can listen to what I'm saying, it means that you have the ability to make decisions. It means you have the ability to process information, which means you have the ability to change the decisions that you are making, which will change the way that your life turns out. And so you have an opportunity today to do something that will make a huge difference for the rest of your life. Because, here's the other thing that's been very apparent to me this year. None of us are guaranteed to die of old age. There are many of you that are watching that will either lose a loved one in 2019, or you might even end your own life, not on purpose, but through an accident or through disease or through something tragic that happens. You are not guaranteed a long life. And that is why it is so important that you wake the heck up and you start to take the time that you have very, very seriously. That you stop hanging out with people that bring you down, that you stop thinking things that you were trained to think from your past that drag you down, that you stop looking at the world in a negative way and you start choosing the kind of mindset that you want to have that's going to help you be happier and more satisfied with this one life that you have. And so if I could implore you to do one thing today that will materially change the rest of your life, it is to make a decision to have a more positive mindset. It is to make a decision to get rid of the old stories that you have about yourself that limit what's possible, both in what you feel and in what you accomplish in your life. Let that sink in for a minute. None of us are guaranteed tomorrow. None of us are guaranteed next year. And you have the ability to make the most out of every day that you are given from this moment forward. And that's the gift of life, frankly, that you get to choose whether you want to suffer through it or whether or not you want to make the small changes to how you think and to who you hang out with and to what you're doing with your time so that you're actually happy. That's the opportunity of your life. And I am begging you to start by resetting your mindset, because you don't realize this yet, but you've got a ton of garbage that you're carrying from the past that is deeply and profoundly affecting your ability to move forward. You have stories about yourself that no longer serve you, but that you still serve up every single day in your life. You have opinions about what's possible based on things that have happened in the past that are no longer relevant or true. And if you continue to think negative things, it's going to dramatically impact the quality of your life, whether or not you enjoy it and whether or not you actually make your dreams come true. And that's where doing a mindset reset comes in. So the way that we're going to start this is you can't change anything until you fully acknowledge where you are. And where you are in this moment is you're the oldest you've ever been. You're the smartest you've ever been because you're the most experienced that you've ever been. You are probably the most broken in some ways because you've experienced a lot of hurt and pain and failures. You're the most powerful because you've experienced the most hurt, the most pain, and the most failure. And you're the most loved. Even if you've faced rejection, the people that are surrounding you love you deeply. And when you start from that place and you have the compassion and you have the wisdom to check in and really identify the lessons that you've learned in 2018, you can say, thank you, 2018, next. And you can start from a place that's really powerful.
A lot of people think that confidence is a personality trait. It's not. It's actually a skill that you build through action. And a lot of people think confidence is a state of belief. It can be, but that's not where it begins. And so I say that confidence is the willingness to try. That's all that it is. Knowing that you may succeed or survive, but you'll still try. And to me, all those people that we admire most, that's what they're doing. They have the ability to tune into those instincts that are true for them. Because the fact is, there's only one you. That's it. And you matter because there's only one you, and there's only ever going to be one you. And your instincts and your experiences and your inner wisdom is a gift to the world. And every time that you tune it out because of the habit of hesitating or the habit of self-doubt or the habit of worrying or the habit of overthinking, you are robbing the world of that gift that you have to give to everybody. And you can use this simple, stupid, silly tool to train yourself to not only hear it, but also to develop the skill of courage to act on it.
Powerful. And is there any area of your life where you feel like you lack courage still?
I'll admit it's kind of easy. I think we all kind of go through those moments where you feel like you're behind. And I think social media is both an incredible tool and it can also be one of those triggers that makes you feel like, look at how many followers this guy has. And like, I'm like so tiny compared to this guy right here. Like it's easy to use technology and social media not for inspiration, but actually as a way to bash yourself that you're not doing what other people are doing.
Comparison or whatever.
Yes. And so I think that I use the rule a lot for patience. I notice that my insecurity rises up because right now, look, I did a ridiculous number of speeches last year. I travel way too much. I don't want my life to look like that. It's a champagne problem. I get it.
Yeah.
But I also have 3 kids in a marriage that I love, and I really feel depleted when I'm not with them. And so I'm practicing patience as I make an intentional pivot in the kind of business that I'm running so that I have more of a life that I want as well. Yeah. So that's one area. I don't feel insecure as much as, the term deliberate practice, right? And the 5-hour rule where...
Deliberate practice, is that from the Talent Code?
Well, the deliberate practice is actually a psychological principle.
I think it was in a book called The Talent Code, but yeah.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's a psychological principle that, the 10,000-hour rule.
I mean, deliberate practice is in
yes.
sports. Yeah,
so deliberate practice is this idea that, you could do 10,000 hours at anything and become an expert at it, but the way to do it faster is to do deliberate practice, which means you're practicing with the intention of improving, and there's a feedback loop.
Yeah, so you do 2,000 hours as opposed to 10,000.
Correct.
Right.
Like, for example, if you want to become an expert at guitar, learn scales. Don't just sit there for 10,000 hours and play the same song. Right. If you learn scales, you get the finger dexterity and the muscle memory and the neural pathway development. By the way. Yes, I saw your guitar over there.
So hard.
I saw your guitar. I always wanted to play guitar, but instead I forced my 3 children to learn.
That's good. You just enjoy it. You just watch them.
Exactly.
My brother's, the number 1 jazz violinist in the world.
What?
Yeah. And so I grew up watching the most incredible,
Now, is he built like you, too?
He used to be even, more jacked. They used to call him the Incredible Hulk of violin because he was just
wow, snap the thing in half. As
he would. He would, slam it like Jimi Hendrix style, yeah. But now he's leaned up a bunch, actually, and so he's incredible. So I used to just be all awestruck by his gifts, and it was unbelievable, his skill. And so I learned guitar. I taught myself when I was 18 just because I was I have to know something, in terms of music. Cool. I can barely, I'm like a hack, but, at least I can do something.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So I'm kind of in this mode of improving myself. And I'll give you one more thing that I'm working on. So I kind of think about my life and my work in 3 buckets. So we got this bucket here, we got this bucket, and we got this bucket. And so when you think about your business or you think about your passion or you think about work, I think about, okay, what do I need to do in terms of how much time and what actions do I need to take in order to develop the skills so that I can perform the work? Mm-hmm. So there's the deliberate practice that goes into practicing your skill and your
mastery.
And your competency mastery, so that when it comes time to actually deliver the work, whether that's selling or standing on a stage or writing a book or talking to people or selling real estate or whatever it is that may be your passion, deliver. This is the one I neglected last year. This bucket is, what are you doing to personally develop yourself so that you are the most capable, fulfilled, and satisfied human being, so that when you show up to do your competency and your skills and the delivery, that you as the human being are able to do that.
Yeah.
And so I've been spending a lot more time consuming content, reading books, watching, your incredible show, and learning from other people. And I think that one of the traps that we entrepreneurs get into is I was feeling last year anyway, like I was on a treadmill, and when I wasn't looking, somebody was coming by and turning up the speed.
Sure.
And I was only in this alley.
And increasing the hills,
Yes. And so, and if you're my age, you need a diaper when somebody does that. You're on a treadmill and a leash to keep you attached to it. Exactly. So I've been focusing a lot on this, and it's been interesting because you and I were talking earlier too about you going to India and some of the stuff that you learned in terms of the different states to be in. And I use one where I pay attention to where I'm feeling depleted versus where I'm energized. And here's the thing. You can be doing things that are really hard that energize you. You can be doing things that are really scary that energize you. The same is true with things that deplete you. There are things in your life that are really easy for you. There are people that you hang out with, by the way, that you've been hanging out with for years, but they deplete you. And so I've been starting to become more deliberate about how I distance myself from things that deplete me and how I spend more time and energy either doing or pushing myself to do those things that actually energize me. And this gets back to your message around passion, right? And that, the art and the skill of building a life that is guided by the things that you're passionate about.
Yeah, that's great.
The third takeaway is one of my biggest philosophies as a leader, and just the way that I think. I am what I call an outcome thinker. So anytime I need to make a decision, I'm always thinking about the outcome. And the outcome is what guides me on what to do.
How much do you balance in making a decision, the outcome thinking and the, really like playing that out compared to your intuition?
Yeah, it's a great question. So any decision can be divided into what do I need to do versus how and when do I need to do it. For the what, that is intuition. And by intuition, I use the word energy. And the way to answer any question for yourself personally that you don't immediately know the answer to is to ask this question. Does it energize and expand my life, or does it shrink it? If it energizes and expands your life, the answer is hell yes. You should absolutely do it. That is what you should do. If the decision shrinks you or it deflates you, then the answer is hell no, you should not do it. This is an incredible tool to use in deal making, by the way, because I'm in the middle of negotiating a massive media deal at the moment, and it's something I've always wanted to do. Yeah. And when you're negotiating for something you really want, whether it's somebody that you're dating or it's a salary or whatever, in my case it's a massive media deal, you can get really ego driven, right? Right. And you can start to get very attached to the deal or to the person or to the whatever. But you have to stop and ask yourself, is this deal or this person actually expanding and energizing me? Or are there aspects of it that deplete and shrink me? And if there's any aspect of it that depletes and shrinks, you either have to change that aspect of the deal or the relationship structure, or you have to say no. Period. Right. If you decide that, it energizes me and I really want to do it, then that's what you want. Next, you've got to think about the outcome, which is how and when you make it happen. Right. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
If you want to have command of your life, you must have control over your thoughts. In this video, Mel Robbins breaks down the secrets on how to have control over your mind.
The thing that's so difficult for most of us is how, when you're alone and you turn off this show, do you push through the excuses, the habits, the fears, and the actual physical constraints that you have in your life right now so that you can make the pivot? And so I often say that I am not a what speaker or a why speaker, I'm a how. And that there's already incredible information about what you can do and why you should do it. And I find that the place that I get stuck is, okay, well, that's great. And I do a lot of thinking, but how do I get out of here and make it happen?
Our thoughts are our biggest killers of our dreams.
Totally.
They're the biggest killers or our biggest cheerleaders. Mm-hmm. And if we don't know how to really, not manipulate them, but to really hone in on them, then we can have a messed up life. And I've gone through many years of self-destruction growing up just because I didn't know how to manage the thoughts. I was never educated on it really, on how to not control it, but I don't know, what is it?
What is it?
What is it? Yeah, not control it, but what is the word I'm looking for?
Well, see, I talk about it this way. So I like to simplify things because it makes it easier for me. I'm almost 50 for crying out loud, and there's only so much that you can remember when you get to be, when he's 33, that's a whole different ballgame. But I think about your brain as being in two modes. Two modes to your brain that you need to know about. There's autopilot. We've all experienced that. You drive to work and get there and you're like, Who drove the car? Oh my God. Like, I don't even remember driving the car here. Yeah. Well, you did, Lewis. You drove the car. But the thing is that you were in the mode of your brain that's called autopilot. Well, what is autopilot? Autopilot is the interior part of your brain. You'll hear neuroscientists and psychologists talk about the basal ganglia. Very important thing to understand is that there's a part of your brain that its entire job is basically to execute your habits. Habits, big fancy word, means something very simple. Behaviors that you repeat without even thinking about it. When you pull your pants on in the morning, I guarantee you either put your left or your right leg in first. And you have to stop and think about which one it is, don't you? But not when you're putting your pants on.
Right, exactly.
Because that behavior is what researchers call a habit loop. It gets encoded as a closed loop system right here. Now, the problem for most of us is that half of the day we're on autopilot. And that's not me making a guess. That's what researchers that study habits and study psychology say. That half of your day, you're basically kind of checked out and you're on autopilot. And when you're checked out and you're on autopilot, any behavior pattern that you repeat can take over. And guess what are behavior patterns that we repeat? Thinking patterns. So self-doubt, worry, procrastination, overthinking, analysis paralysis, fear. Those are all thinking patterns that are habits. One of the most important things that I want people to understand is that you're actually not a worrier. You have a habit of worrying. Big difference. You're not a procrastinator. You have a habit of procrastinating. Big difference. And when you understand that any behavior pattern, whether it is a thinking pattern like you doubt yourself all the time, or you get trapped upstairs noodling everything and you can never get started, or whether it's a behavior pattern like you drink too much, or you snap at your kids, or you micromanage your team. Every one of those behavior patterns and thinking patterns can actually be interrupted and replaced using science. Now, let's talk about the second part of the brain. Drive. That's this puppy right here. This is what you want. This is your prefrontal cortex. Drive is the mode where you're in charge of your thoughts, okay? It's where you are fully awake, you are present, and you are driving your thoughts and actions. When you're doing that, your prefrontal cortex is active. The prefrontal cortex is the part of the brain that you need in order to learn new behavior, in order to do something difficult, in order to do something uncertain, in order to do strategic thinking. So I'm going to give you an example. So I'm a righty. If I were to try to write with my left hand, Lewis is going to torture me and tie my hand behind my back and make me do this. I could do it. It would look like I was writing with my foot. And if Lewis came up to me and said, "Hey, Mel, you want some bulletproof coffee?" I'd be like, "Lewis, I'm trying to concentrate. I can't do this." My prefrontal cortex would be el fuego because it is firing on all cylinders to communicate to my hand new behavior. So the thing that's cool about that is that you can use a simple trick. The moment you feel yourself hesitate, the moment you've got one of those moments where you know that you need to, this is that moment that Lewis talks to you about where you got to step outside of your comfort zone and you've got to lean into your passion and you've got to really take some risks and you got to feel the fear and you got to do it anyway. That's the moment where you just woke up and now you got a decision to make. Are you going to drift back into the habits or are you going to awaken your prefrontal cortex and drive forward and focus and do something new? And so the work that I've been doing and speaking about is all about the 5-second rule, which is a trick that I invented by mistake that helps you manually switch, no joke, your brain. It turns off and interrupts the part of the brain that is where all your habits and your behavior patterns are encoded, and it awakens your prefrontal cortex, which in 5 seconds flat allows your brain to help you change. And so, anyway,
I love it.
I was rambling on and on because you went on this thing about how your patterns can be destructive and nobody teaches us, and that's absolutely right. And what I want everybody to get out of this conversation between us is that you cannot control how you feel. You cannot control what triggers you and the fact that you may rise up with anger. You may rise up with self-doubt. You may have anxiety fill your body. But you can always control what you think and how you behave. And we spend way too much time trying to focus on manipulating how we feel about things and not enough time practicing the skills of controlling your behavior and your thoughts.
Because if you can control your behavior and your thoughts, then the way you feel will be different.
100%. And a lot of us are sitting around waiting to feel ready, waiting to feel courageous, waiting to feel confident, waiting for the right time. And that's not ever coming. Ever. Ever. You're not going to change your life up here. You only change it through action. And so to me, I did this interview with your friend Tom, and we talked about how motivation is garbage, and somebody memed it and went crazy. And so the point that I was trying to make is that motivation is great if you feel motivated, but it's garbage, and it's a losing bet to wait to feel ready. Because your body's not designed that way, and neither is your brain. And so I want everybody to understand that, first of all, you can't control the things that trigger you and the fact that you're going to feel afraid and you're going to feel doubt and you're going to feel uncertain. But you can always interrupt that feeling and take control in the moment and actually shift what you're thinking and shift how you behave.
Yeah. And, the bigger the dream, the more fear you're going to have. Even if you feel like you've conquered the fear of something, in order to grow, you've got to take on some new challenge. And there's going to be uncertainty. There's going to be some stress, or there's going to be some worry, or there's going to be some ego checking, and there's going to be some identity crisis.
Yeah.
So there's always going to be this fear that could arise. Always. I mean, do you feel like once you'd mastered this that you have no more fear?
Me?
Yeah.
No, the fear still comes, but I have 100% control of what I think and do. Right. So one of the things that is important for me to put on the table is that a lot of times, people look at where you are now. And so they'll see me on television, or they'll see that TED Talk, or maybe you'll be in an audience of 20,000 people in the American Airlines Center, and I'm on stage, and you're like, wow, that chick must have just been more than confident. I hate her. The fact is, that's not at all how I was. When I was 19, I started having crazy panic attacks. And they got so bad that I took medication, and medication was a godsend for me. I took Zoloft for 2 decades. When I had our first daughter, who is now 17 years old, the postpartum depression was so bad that they put me on Ativan, which turns you into a zombie, and I could not be left alone with her. So when it comes to self-doubt and to how we can torture ourselves with our thoughts, boy, have I lived that nightmare. And as I started to use the 5-second rule, which we're going to get into, and everything about my life changed, because when people first learn the rule, what you're going to start doing is you're going to start using the rule to push yourself to do things that are annoying. You're going to push yourself to get up on time. You're going to push yourself to work on your business plan. You're going to push yourself to make calls that are scary. You're going to push yourself to get to the gym. You're going to push yourself to speak up more at work. You're going to push yourself to put the booze down. Behavioral. And then you're going to start to actually use it to change the thinking patterns that are self-sabotaging. So I, 4 years ago, wondered, as I started to see myself go from facing bankruptcy to building a 8-figure business. What happened for me is I started to say, okay, this is a really cool little trick to bring out the most powerful side of you, but can I use this to actually cure myself of anxiety? And the answer is yes, you can. And 4 years ago, I went off Zoloft and I started using the 5-second rule, which I'm going to explain in 1 second, to interrupt the patterns of worry and self-doubt, which, by the way, anxiety is nothing more than the habit of worrying, spiraling out of control. And body feelings triggering now the habit of obsessive worrying that turns into anxiety and then kind of escalates to panic. I started using the 5-second rule to interrupt my thoughts every time I would feel that kind of worry kick in. And because the prefrontal cortex is awakened when you use it, your mind is now ready to take on a totally different thought. It's a very different strategy than just trying to switch the channel on what you're thinking, because you're actually inserting the step that nobody talks about, which is switching the gears in your mind so that your mind can actually take and believe the thinking. This item on your checklist, it will store the checklist in your subconscious. It's encoded in your RAS, and your mind is now on the alert to spot things related to it. The way that you make yourself feel like something is important is your nervous system goes on alert while you're thinking about it. You're either super excited about something, oh, this is super important, or this is the trauma effect. You go on alert and you have something really bad happen, which is why things continue to bring it up throughout the rest of your life. So when you understand that if something's important to you, your filter will change in real time how you see the fucking world. You now know how to change your brain to work for you. And looking for hearts is the way I'm going to prove to you that this happens. I want to give you one other example because everybody's experienced this. If you've ever gone shopping for a new car or you've dreamt about having a new car, what happens immediately when you get excited about that new car is your mind goes, Zeigarnik effect. Oops, okay, Tom wants the new Bronco. That's cool. So what do you see now? You see Broncos everywhere. Now, they were always there, but your mind is letting them in because the Zeigarnik effect is now made it on a checklist. It's changed the RAS. And so I am going to prove to you that it is unbelievably cool that you can change the way that you view the world by looking for heart-shaped objects. So tomorrow when you wake up, you're going to start your day by high-fiving yourself in the mirror. I want you to examine what the resistance about, because you're going to start to then be able to unpack what's holding you back. Then you're going to go out in the world and just tell your mind, I want to see a heart today. Look for a rock, look for a leaf, look in your latte. Is there a little shape there? Is there an oil stain on the floor? And when you see one, stop and go, shit, there's a scavenger hunt. I never would have seen that before. Thank you, brain. Now your brain's like, woo, more hearts. You will start to see hearts everywhere. And when you can start to train your brain and realize, whoa, this is actually a cool thing. This is high-fiving your mind. When you can see hearts, you can now go, wait a minute. If I can change what I see based on what I tell it, maybe if I got serious about not constantly saying I'm a failure, I wouldn't attach that or see it everywhere. Maybe if I got serious about saying I can figure anything out, this is happening for a reason, instead of I'm fucked, you say, okay, I'm going to learn something with this. It changes the way your brain filters everything. And this is such an important piece to the book because we've all had the experience where you love somebody deeply and you see all their incredible attributes and all they see is failure, or all they see is the weight that they can't lose. And it doesn't matter what you say. It doesn't matter what kind of pep talk or support you give them. Your loved one still only sees what they hate about themselves. Blame the filter in your brain. You have been bitching about your appearance or the weight on your scale, or the fact that you're a failure for so long, your brain believes it's important to you to see reasons why this is true. And one of the things I got to say about this, and everything in the book, is the tools are simple, Tom. But it's super important to say, just because you change and start celebrating yourself, it's not going to make the weight disappear suddenly. It doesn't change the number on the scale overnight. What it changes is you. And that changes your ability to deal with the problems and the issues you want to change in your life.
You have some really counterintuitive ideas, bold stances on things, which I found incredibly interesting. One of them is jealousy. And that not to just reject that stuff offhand, but that there's actually information carried in those strong emotions.
Jealousy is one of the most powerful directional signals on the planet, because you're only jealous of people that are doing things or have things that you actually want. It's impossible to be fake jealous. Whatever you're jealous of is hitting something deeply personal. Fucking pay attention to it. Instead of stewing in it, go, oh, flip it. That's interesting. I wonder why I'm jealous. What is it about it? Oh, it's that they're doing it consistently. It's that they've built a team. It's that they've aligned their work together so that they're spending more time together. How could I take those things that I'm really now really inspired by and take action and go get them in my life? Because the thing about jealousy is, it's just your inspiration that's blocked. Jealousy is sort of the insecurity
that you have that blocks this inspiration. I guarantee you, back to the Uber driver, he's jealous of all the other actors earning Oscars because he's so inspired by the thought of doing that in his own life, but his insecurity is blocking action. His fear is blocking action. So instead of it being inspiration, it shows up as jealousy. And I'm here to tell you, the second you feel jealousy, frickin' whoop, stop. Okay, let's unpack that. What exactly is it about it? And now, if I were inspired by it, because there's enough success to go around for everybody, if I can use that as a roadmap to then go figure out how I might be able to do that for myself, wow, talk about a game changer. And now let's add in the high five. What if every time I took a little step, I celebrated myself for just doing it? Now you're building small wins and momentum in a direction that's meant for you. That's how you change your life.
Yeah, that to me, getting people to understand that the idea that there's enough success for anybody, it doesn't matter if you're copying somebody for no reason other than the only thing that matters in life is, are you having fun? Is this a joyful life? Are you working hard at something that matters to you?
Yeah.
And whether or not it's even a carbon copy of somebody else, if you're having a ball, you've already won.
Totally.
And getting people to recognize, like, and this is why I like your answer around, at some point you just have to accept you're high-fiving yourself in the mirror because the neurochemistry says that that's what you need to do. Getting people to understand neurochemistry is the game.
Yeah.
And once you understand the game that you're playing, then you can play it well. But if you don't understand the game, then you're going to get stuck and you're going to be stuck forever. And you talk a lot about taking responsibility for that, recognizing nobody's coming to save you. It's something you said in the book. It's something that you've said in interviews. It's something that I absolutely think is really powerful. How do we use that? Why is that important to recognize?
Well, it's important to recognize because, first of all, nobody is coming. I mean, if you've been sitting around waiting for somebody to discover you, to pick you, to save you, to rescue you, to give you your shot, it's not fucking happening. Like, at some point, you got to wake up and realize when you're 18 and you're out of that house, you have to parent yourself. Your life is your responsibility. And as a woman, one of the things that I found to be extraordinarily transformational is when I stopped, in a very traditional sense, looking to my partner to be responsible for providing for me. Providing financially, providing the support, providing. When I realized, wait a minute, it starts with me. I have to be able to figure out how to make myself happy. That's, by the way, the secret to a happy relationship. Marry somebody who's happy and work on your own happiness.
Preach.
And so when you stop outsourcing your happiness, your validation, your support, all of it, and you bring it back in and you get responsible for it, it sounds scary. It's so liberating because you could do anything. When you're responsible, when you're the driver of your life, when you're not looking out to anybody else to fix it for you, can you ask for help? Of course, but the buck stops with you. You're the one that has to do the work. You're the one who has to push your own ass. You're the one who has to figure out what makes you happy. You're the one who has to figure out and become self-aware about what you need. And then you're the one that has to find whatever it is, the courage or being humble enough to ask for help. Even if it's asking for help from the biggest ally that you have, which is the person staring back at you in the mirror every damn morning.
Yeah, I don't know why people aren't more obsessed with their goals. It's like, if my goals demand that I ask for help, then I'm going to ask for help. Like, I'm not even going to let anything else get in the way. I'm just so obsessed with, if my goal is exciting and honorable, then I should actually want to achieve it. And therefore, whatever it is that I need to do.
So, Tom, this is why. And this comes back to what has made me really sad and deeply moved by the kinds of things that people are sharing. Most people aren't obsessed with their goals because they don't believe they're worthy of them. It's easy to dream about what you want, but in between where you are and what you want, there's a tremendous amount of stuff you got to change and do. And if you have a lot of trauma in your background, or you were raised by somebody who beat the shit out of you or told you were a piece of shit, or if you've had to deal with
microaggressions, racist, discriminatory, systematic crap your entire life, you have been given the message over and over and over, even though it's not true, that you don't deserve it, that there's something wrong with you. And if you don't, at some point, be defiant against what the world or your caregivers or your past experience has pounded into your brain incorrectly, unfairly, you will forever be stuck with that story. You are not responsible for what happened to you. You survived what happened to you. But you do have a responsibility to heal yourself and to do the work to change so that you can be the happy, fulfilled person that you were born to be.
Yeah, that's really powerful because it's the only thing that works. And, you know, thinking about so many people have just immense things that have happened that have been unfair. And as you said, they didn't do anything to deserve it. But now what? Now you're there, you've got the trauma, and no one can heal it for you. There's a name for it. I think it's called the Pedestrian Problem. It's like, imagine that you get hit by a car and the driver was drunk. And let's say that the driver was Bill Gates. And let's say that you win a settlement. But if the damage that happened to your body can't be fixed with all the money in the world, and you just have to do physical therapy, then it's like, even though it is unfair that you have to do the physical therapy, there is no amount of money that you can throw at it that will stop you from having to suffer to build yourself back up. And I think a lot of people either fall prey to trap number one, which is they don't think they're worthy, or they fall prey to trap number two, which is it's so unfair they just don't take action.
Right.
But they're nonetheless in the situation that they're in, and if the whole punchline to life is neurochemistry and feeling joyful and, you know, being excited about who you are when you're by yourself, then it's like, well, you have to do the work, even if it isn't fair. And that to me,
especially if it isn't, because there's two kinds of prisons that you can sentence yourself to or be sentenced to, right? One is all the physical shit you're talking about, the circumstances of your life, the circumstances of your body, the circumstances that are unfair. And then there is the mental prison, and that's the one you're in control of. So people can do all kinds of shit to you. And you can be born into situations that are not fair, they're not safe, they're cruel, it's unfair, you didn't deserve it. But the real power that you always have is how you react to it mentally. I'm not saying put lipstick on a pig and ignore the very real problems you're facing. I'm saying it begins with your mental attitude about your own ability to face it and to survive it and to move past it. That's what I'm saying. Because without that, like, let's go back to the woman in the domestic violence shelter who's had the shit beaten out of her by partners, who has immense emotional trauma stored in her nervous system, stored in the neurochemistry of her brain. She has an extraordinary amount of hurdles to get through in her life to heal, to be safe, to break patterns that are associated with the trauma that she's experienced as a child, the trauma that she experienced in romantic relationships, the physical abuse. She has issues related to poverty. Can a human being survive those things and change? Of course they can. It begins, though, with the belief that you can. And so when I come back to this moment every single morning, you can have nothing and you can still have your own back. You can have tremendous problems and very real obstacles that you're facing. And you can have a mindset that says, through my efforts, my attitude, I can have an impact on the situation that I'm in. That's the power that I have. I can ask for help because I believe I deserve it. I can seek therapy because I believe I should heal because I deserve that. I can seek information from shows like Impact Theory about how to break trauma patterns, about how to regulate my nervous system, because I believe I am worthy of that. When I raise my hand in the mirror, I'm basically saying, fuck off to these people that hurt me,
because I believe that I deserve better. That's where it begins. It begins with you. Self-confidence, self-love, self-esteem, self-reliance, self-awareness. It all has the same self. You have to give yourself those things. You want validation? Give it to yourself. You want to be cheered for? Give it to yourself. You want to feel supported in life? Start by giving those things to yourself, because the most important relationship that you have is the one you have with yourself, and you work on it the least. It's the foundation of every relationship you have. And so I believe that there are simple things you can do, from looking at hearts, which doesn't solve your problems. It proves to you that it's possible to change the way your brain works. That's why I want you to do it. It's not going to take away poverty. It's not going to make you lose 100 pounds. It's going to prove to you that, shit, you do have power over the way your mind works. And when you get crafty about training your brain, you can do really cool shit. And when your attitude is optimistic, based on research, we know that you will work harder and keep going because you believe that it makes a difference. It begins with these simple things. You're going to find a ton of videos about the science behind the journaling method I use, the science and research that's very recent about productivity. And today we're going to talk about my most favorite piece of research, and that comes from Harvard Business School, and it's called the Progress Principle. So I'm going to walk you through my journaling method. This is the one that I did today. Oh, you can't see it on Instagram. Hold on a second. There we go. And so today in my journal, first of all, we covered this yesterday, really important for you to start with assessing your mood. And the reason why we want you to assess your mood is because research proves that your mood first thing in the morning impacts your level of productivity, your sense of focus, and your happiness all day long. So super important as a mindfulness act to wake up and tune in and ask yourself, well, how am I feeling? Am I depleted or am I energized? In yesterday's video, I shared that I kind of circled this near the depleted end, the meh kind of end, because somebody had kept me awake in the hotel all night. Well, today I'm really good. And the reason why I'm really good, and this is probably too much information, is because I'd been kind of backed up after our holiday trip to Tanzania, if you know what I mean. And so yesterday, the train finally got moving again. And so I feel really good. I'm also home, so I can cook dinner for the family. And I was able to drop off my son and pick up my son. And that just makes me feel really, really good. To feel even more energized, I went to yoga class today. And so this is what we covered in yesterday's video, but I'm just showing you. These questions take 5 seconds. And if you learn how to tune in, to read your energy, and then to think of one thing you could do to boost it. By boosting your mood, you're going to boost your focus, you're going to boost your productivity, you're going to boost your sense of control. It's pretty amazing. This is the progress principle. This sucker right here has changed my life, and it helps me be a wildly successful woman. We're launching a brand new daytime talk show that's going to have a staff of 70 people, and it's 175 shows a year. My business partners, Mandy and Chris, and I run a media company in Boston. We have a project launching with Audible Originals on February 7th. We put out videos every single day on social media. We are engaging with more than 1 million people a day on social media. On top of that, we have a ton of, I'm delivering 47 speeches between now and the end of May, and I'm still married after 23 years, and my kids talk to me. So I think I'm doing pretty good. And part of it is because I've learned to leverage the progress principle. I don't try to get everything done. Every morning after I assess my mood, based on research from Harvard Business School, I leverage something called the progress principle. And this is what the progress principle states. The people that feel the most productive and the most satisfied with their work are people who make meaningful progress on something that matters to them. That's it. That's it. They're not the people that get 155,000 things done. The progress principle states that if you make little progress every single day, just incremental steps forward on something that matters to you, you will be more productive, you'll be more satisfied, you'll be happier, you'll be more fulfilled, you'll be more present. And I got to tell you, based on personal experience, this has been a game changer for me. So today, my top project, this is my top project. Brace yourself, because it's not that ground shaking. My top project today was simply to brain dump in one place all the loose things that I want to make sure are getting done in our company. That's it. All the projects that that's it. That was just the top project that popped into my mind. Then you're going to say, this project matters to me. Why? Well, it matters to me because it stresses me out when I feel like there are loose ends to things and when I feel like I don't know what's happening. And so I need to do this for me. What's one small action I can do to move forward? One small action, you want to see how incremental this is. The only action that I committed to taking today, based on the progress principle, was to carry my 5-second journal around so that I could use the other side to brain dump the things that I want to make sure that I'm capturing so I can go over this list with the team. That's it. That's it. And I've been brain dumping things as they come up. And there's not as many loose ends as I manifest in my head. But the good news is I'm making progress. I feel accomplished. I feel satisfied. And so will you. Hey, it's Mel. Thank you so much for being here. If you enjoyed that video, by God, please subscribe, because I don't want you to miss a thing. Thank you so much for being here. We've got so much amazing stuff coming. Thank you so much for sending this stuff to your friends and your family. I love you. We create these videos for you. So make sure you subscribe. Mwah.